said a federal judge who, by the way, had a distinguished record as a U.S. attorney, had to go in hiding because Mexican drug gangs were after him, who has Mexican heritage, but just like me, was born in this country, is somehow incapable solely because of his heritage. Even the Republican Speaker of the House of Representatives, Paul Ryan, described that, and I quote, as the textbook definition of a racist comment. And to this day, Trump has never apologized to Judge Curiel. But for Trump, that is just par for the course. This is someone who retweets white supremacists online, like the user who goes by the name White Genocide TM. Trump took this fringe bigot with a few dozen followers and spread his message to 11 million people. His campaign famously posted an anti-Semitic image, a Star of David imposed over a sea of dollar bills that first appeared on white supremacist websites. The Trump campaign has also selected a prominent white nationalist leader as a delegate in California, and they only dropped him under pressure. When asked in a nationally televised interview whether he would disavow the support of David Duke, a former grand wizard of the Ku Klux Klan, Trump wouldn't do it. And only later, again, under mounting pressure, did he backtrack. And when Trump was asked about anti-Semitic slurs and death threats coming from his supporters, he refused to condemn them. Through it all, he has continued pushing discredited conspiracy theories with racist undertones. You remember he said that thousands of American Muslims in New Jersey cheered the 9/11 attacks. They didn't. He suggested that Senator Ted Cruz's father was involved in the Kennedy assassination. Now, perhaps in Trump's mind, because Mr. Cruz was a Cuban immigrant, he must have had something to do with it. And there is absolutely, of course, no evidence of that. Just recently, Trump claimed that President Obama founded ISIS. And he has repeated that over and over again. His latest paranoid fever dream is about my health. And all I can say is, Donald, dream on. But my friends, this is what happens when you treat the National Enquirer like gospel. They said in October I'd be dead in 6 months. It's also what happens when you listen to the radio host Alex Jones, who claims that 9/11 and the Oklahoma City bombings were inside jobs. He even said, and this really just is so disgusting, he even said the victims of the Sandy Hook massacre were child actors and no one was actually killed there. I don't know what happens in somebody's mind or how dark their heart must be to say things like that. But Trump doesn't challenge these lies. He actually went on Jones's show and said, "Your reputation is amazing. I will not let you down." This from the man who wants to be president of the United States. You know, I've stood by President Obama's side as he made the toughest decisions a commander-in-chief has to make. In times of crisis, our country depends on steady leadership, clear thinking, calm judgment, because one wrong move can mean the difference between life and death. I know we have veterans here, and I know we have families, mothers and spouses and children of people currently serving. The last thing we need in the Situation Room is a loose cannon who can't tell the difference or doesn't care to between fact and fiction, and who buys so easily into racially tinged rumors. Someone so detached from reality should never be in charge of making decisions that are as real as they come. And that is yet another reason why Donald Trump is simply temperamentally unfit to be president of the United States. Now, I hear and I read some people who are saying, well, that his bluster and his bigotry is just overheated campaign rhetoric. An outrageous person saying outrageous things for attention. But look at his policies. The ones that Trump has proposed, they would put prejudice into practice. And don't be distracted by his latest efforts to muddy the waters. He may have some new people putting new words in his mouth, but we know where he stands. He would form a deportation force to round up millions of immigrants and kick them out of the country. He'd abolish the bedrock constitutional principle that says if you're born in the United States, you're an American citizen. He says that children born to undocumented parents in America are anchor babies and should be deported, millions of them. He'd banned Muslims around the world from entering our country just because of their religion. Now think about that for a minute. How would that actually work? So people landing in U.S. airports would line up to get their passports stamped, just like they do now. But in Trump's America, when they step up to the counter, the immigration officer would ask every single person, what is your religion? And then what? What if someone says, I'm a Christian, but the agent doesn't believe him? Do they have to prove it? How would they do that? Really, ever since the Pilgrims landed on Plymouth Rock, America has distinguished itself as a haven for people fleeing religious persecution, believing in religious freedom and religious liberty. Under Donald Trump, America would distinguish itself as the only country in the world to impose a religious test at the border. Now, come to think of it, there actually may be one other place that does that, the so-called Islamic State, the territory that ISIS controls. What a cruel irony that someone running for president would equate us with them. Now, but don't worry, some will say, as president, Trump will be surrounded by smart advisors who will rein in his worst impulses. So when a tweet gets under his skin and he wants to retaliate with a cruise missile, maybe cooler heads will convince him not to. Well, maybe. But look at who he's put in charge of his campaign. Trump likes to say he only hires the best people. But he's had to fire so many campaign managers, it's like an episode from The Apprentice. And the latest shakeup was designed to, quote, let Trump be Trump. So to do that, he hired Stephen Bannon, the head of a right-wing website called Breitbart.com, as the campaign CEO. Now, to give you a flavor of his work, here are a few headlines they've published. And I'm not making this up. Birth control makes women unattractive and crazy. Would you rather your child had feminism or cancer? Gabby Giffords, the gun control movement's human shield. Hoisted high and proud, the Confederate flag proclaims a glorious heritage. And that one came shortly after the Charleston massacre, when Democrats and Republicans alike were doing everything they could to heal racial divides that Breitbart and Bannon tried to inflame. Just imagine Donald Trump reading that and thinking, this is what I need more of in my campaign. Now, Bannon has nasty things to say about pretty much everyone. This spring, he railed against Speaker Paul Ryan for, quote, rubbing his social justice Catholicism in my nose every second. No wonder he's gone to work for Trump, the only presidential candidate ever to get into a public feud with the Pope. It's truly hard to believe, but according to the Southern Poverty Law Center, which tracks hate groups, Breitbart embraces ideas on the extremist fringe of the conservative right. This is not conservatism as we have known it. This is not republicanism as we have known it. These are racist ideas, race-baiting ideas, anti-Muslim, anti-immigrant, anti-women, all key tenets making up the emerging racist ideology known as the alt-right. Now, alt-right is short for alternative right. The Wall Street Journal describes it as a loose but organized movement, mostly online, that rejects mainstream conservatism, promotes nationalism, and views immigration and multiculturalism as threats to white identity. So the de facto merger between Breitbart and the Trump campaign represents a landmark achievement for this group, a fringe element that has effectively taken over the Republican Party. And this is part of a broader story, the rising tide of hardline right-wing nationalism around the world. Just yesterday, one of Britain's most prominent right-wing leaders, a man named Nigel Farage, who stoked anti-immigrant sentiments to win the referendum to have Britain leave the European Union, campaigned with Donald Trump in Mississippi. Farage has called for a bar on the children of legal immigrants from public schools and health services, has said women are, and I quote, worth less than men, and supports scrapping laws that prevent employers from discriminating based on race. That's who Donald Trump wants by his side when he is addressing an audience of American voters. And the grand godfather of this global brand of extreme nationalism is Russian President Vladimir Putin. And in fact, Farage regularly appears on Russian propaganda programs. Now he's standing on the same stage as the Republican nominee. Trump himself heaps praise on Putin and embraces pro-Russian policies. He talks casually of abandoning our NATO allies, recognizing Russia's annexation of Crimea, giving the Kremlin a free hand in Eastern Europe. American presidents from Truman to Reagan to Bush and Clinton to Obama have rejected the kind of approach Trump is taking on Russia, and we should too. Now, all of this adds up to something we have never seen before. Now, of course, there's always been a paranoid fringe in our politics, a lot of it arising from racial resentment, but it's never had the nominee of a major party stoking it, encouraging it, and giving it a national megaphone until now. On David Duke's radio show the other day, the mood was jubilant. We appear to have taken over the Republican Party, one white supremacist said. Duke laughed. No, there's still more work to do, he replied. So no one should have any illusions about what's really going on here. The names may have changed. Racists now call themselves racialists. White supremacists now call themselves white nationalists. The paranoid fringe now calls itself alt-right. But the hate burns just as bright. And now Trump is trying to rebrand himself as well. But don't be fooled. There's an old Mexican proverb that says, "Tell me with whom you walk, and I will tell you who you are." But we know who Trump is. A few words on a teleprompter won't change that. He says he wants to make America great again, but more and more it seems as though his real message seems to be make America hate again. And this isn't just about one election. It's about who we are as a nation. It's about the kind of example we want to set for our children and our grandchildren. Next time you see Trump on TV, think about all the children listening across America. You know, kids hear a lot more than we think. Parents and teachers are already worrying about what they call the Trump effect. They report that bullying and harassment are on the rise in our schools, especially targeting students of color, Muslims, and immigrants. At a recent high school basketball game in Indiana, white students held up Trump signs and taunted Latino players on the opposing team with chants of "Build the Wall" and "Speak English." After a similar incident in Iowa, one frustrated school principal said, "They see it in a presidential campaign, and now it's okay for everyone to say this." We wouldn't tolerate this kind of behavior before, and we wouldn't tolerate in our homes, and we should not stand for it from a presidential candidate. You know, my friends, this is a moment of reckoning for every Republican dismayed that the party of Lincoln has become the party of Trump. It's a moment of reckoning for all of us who love our country and believe that America is better than this. 20 years ago, when Bob Dole accepted the Republican nomination, he pointed to the exits in the convention hall and told any racists in the party to get out. The week after 9/11, George W. Bush went to a mosque and declared for everyone to hear that Muslims love America just as much as I do. In 2008, John McCain told his own supporters that they were wrong about the man he was trying to defeat. Senator McCain made sure they knew Barack Obama, he said, is an American citizen and a decent person. We need that kind of leadership again. We can have our disagreements, and believe me, I understand that. I think that's healthy. We need good debates, but we need to do it in a respectful way, not finger-pointing and blaming and stirring up this bigotry and prejudice. Every day, more Americans are standing up and saying, enough is enough, including a lot of Republicans, and I am honored to have their support in this campaign. And I promise you this, with your help, I will be a president for Democrats, Republicans, and independents, for those who vote for me and for those who vote against me. I will be a president for all Americans. Because I truly believe we are stronger together, and this is a vision for the future rooted in our values and reflected in a rising generation of young people. The young people in America today are the most open, diverse, and connected generation we have ever seen. How many of you saw any of the Olympics, right? I was so proud. I always get carried away every time the Olympics are on. And you look at the diversity of our athletes. Look at our fabulous Olympic team representing the United States of America. Ibtihaj Muhammad, an African-American Muslim from New Jersey, won the bronze medal in fencing with grace and skill. Would she even have a place in Donald Trump's America? And I'll tell you, when I was growing up, in so many parts of our country, Simone Manuel and Katie Ledecky would not have been allowed to swim in the same public pool. And now together on our swimming team, they're winning Olympic medals as teammates. I don't know about you, but I don't think we have a person to waste. We want to build an America where everyone has a place, where if you work hard and you do your part, you can get ahead and stay ahead. That's the basic bargain of America. And we cannot get to where we need to be unless we move forward together and stand up against prejudice and paranoia and prove again that America is great because America is good. Thank you all so very much. Let's go out and win the election. God bless you, and God bless the United States of America. Thank you.
You're watching Hillary Clinton in Reno, Nevada, in what is shaping up to be a quite extraordinary day on the presidential campaign trail. In effect, dueling rallies. Donald Trump in Manchester, New Hampshire, Hillary Clinton in Reno, Nevada. Hillary Clinton trying to lash the Trump campaign to platforms that are paranoid and prejudice, and Donald Trump saying, no, our policies are what they are, but our supporters are not racist, they are not bigots. Unusual rebuttal, unusual accusation, and to help us understand all of this, we've got on set here Real Clear politics reporter Caitlin Huey-Burns, and in Washington, the Washington Post national political reporter Philip Rucker. Caitlin, I want to go to you first. How do you think Hillary Clinton did in the second position? Donald Trump gave his speech, his rally. Hillary Clinton responding, trying to attach Trump to the alt-right. How successful was she?
Well, I think you have to look at her speech today in terms of the context and the actual message. So this speech comes at a time that she's under scrutiny for allegations and controversy surrounding the foundation and her time as Secretary of State. More emails are coming out, that sort of thing. She definitely wants to turn the page, focus on Donald Trump. And this is an opportunity for her to do that. He, of course, hired Steve Bannon last week of Breitbart, which she mentioned in the speech, and she wants to paint him as someone who, at the time that Donald Trump is changing his positions on immigration, paint him as someone who's been steady on these kinds of issues all along, issues that are at odds with what she calls American values. And I think what's really interesting, too, is what she's doing and what we saw from the president during the Democratic convention. She's not necessarily painting all Republicans with this brush. She's pointing to, Reagan, McCain, Bush, and signaling to Republicans, this is not your party. So it's kind of a way to, I think, expand her support if she can.
And Phil, Kellyanne Conway, Donald Trump's campaign manager, tried to get ahead of this speech by Hillary Clinton this morning on CBS. She said that it's in effect a speech about a website, trying to diminish it, make it seem insignificant. What did you think substantively about the content of the speech and also politically about the move to give it now?
Yeah, it's not a speech about a website. It's a speech about a campaign that in her mind, and as she said, has been based on dog whistles, on racial politics, on paranoia and division. And she went through a litany of examples in which Donald Trump has given a megaphone to this part of the party, this alt-right universe, the KKK, the David Dukes, the fringe radio figures, and elevated them. His campaign CEO now is Steve Bannon, who was at this Breitbart website, and she went through a number of headlines and stories in Breitbart's coverage that I think a lot of Americans would find racially divisive, if not outright racist. And so the point here, and I think Caitlin made a great point about, she's trying to reach a lot of Republican voters who actually would be really turned off by this side of the Trump campaign and say, look, this is not the normal Republican Party. This is a fringe, dog whistle, race-based movement, and you should get away from that and be part of the mainstream in America, which is what Clinton is trying to say she represents.
Yeah, the unspoken target, the audience really for this speech seemed to be those college-educated voters in the middle who right now, as Kellyanne Conway, Donald Trump's campaign manager, has put it, they feel it's unfashionable to say publicly that they support Donald Trump. Donald Trump trying to make it safe for them, and Hillary Clinton trying to keep up the danger factor to continue to make Donald Trump radioactive with that sector of the population. Caitlin, do you think she was successful?
Well, Hillary Clinton is trying to make the case that, Trump is not, that's not true, what Conway is saying.
Do you think after that speech it is now easier or harder for college-educated voters to say at a cocktail party, yeah, I support Donald Trump?
I think it actually makes it harder because, as Phil mentioned, going through a list of not only the Breitbart headlines, but people who have supported Trump, Hillary Clinton came out with a really scathing video ad today using past comments from David Duke and other kind of nationalist white supremacist groups supporting Donald Trump in their own words, which I think has the potential to be really damaging. Of course, this comes at a time that he is trying to make this minority outreach pitch as his way of reaching out to people in the middle of the road in the Republican Party, traditional Republican voters who are really upset and reluctant to support him because of his rhetoric and tone. And she's saying, don't believe the things that he's been saying. Don't believe this change of tone. We'll see.
Phil, I want to get you in here one more time. Hillary Clinton didn't say much, if anything, about the Clinton Foundation State Department emails. Wise move or unwise move?
Well, that's not what this speech was about. She was on CNN last night and gave a brief defense in one of her rare interviews about the Clinton Foundation controversy, and that's going to continue to be a story for her probably all the way through November. I mean, it's a problem, and a lot of Americans look at the findings, and while there may not be anything criminal here, it certainly looks unethical to a kind of casual voter who's watching all of this unfold. And the important thing to remember is this election is not actually a choice of, do you agree with Donald Trump or not? Do you think Donald Trump is racist or not? But there's a choice between Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton, and in a lot of states, the third-party candidates as well. And all of these candidates are unpopular in different ways and have their own liabilities. And the struggle that voters are going through is figuring out, which is worse and which person to vote for. And so this is all in context here.
Yeah, the remarkable part of the Donald Trump speech is when he said that the Hillary Clinton Foundation State Department scandal, in his words, is the Watergate of our generation. I want your Washington Post, which broke the Watergate story, to give us a fact check on that one. We'll leave it here for now. Philip Rucker of the Washington Post and Caitlin Huey-Burns of Real Clear Politics, thank you both very much.
Thank you.
And we'll be right back after this break. You're watching CBSN, always on.
Hi, I'm Jeff. In my Johnsonville commercial, we open up in the forest. I'm eating my breakfast, and all of a sudden, a raccoon come up and asked me, "What are you eating?" Told him, "Johnsonville breakfast sausage, fully cooked." Porcupine comes in and he says, "Does that come in patties?" I said, "Yep." Wolf comes in and says, "How'd you learn to talk to animals?" And I said, "Books." And we had a good laugh about that. That's a commercial made the Johnsonville way.